Welcome to round 9 of the MCC Classic. This is the final round of this 9-round tournament. It's FIDE rated over the board tournament with a 90 plus 30 classical time control. In this final round, I'm playing an unrated opponent. I'm currently sitting on 2.5 points, 2 wins, a draw out of the 8 rounds I've played so far. So if we could get a win here to finish on 3.5 points. We're going to be working hard in this game for that. We have the white pieces, and we kick it off with d4, as we always do. And opponent plays the Dutch with f5. Played this twice in over the board tournaments before, played against the Dutch, I should say. So I did have a line in mind. Still continuing with knight c3, just like in the Jabava, like we played before against d5 and knight f6 ideas. Opponent continues knight f6, and here we're playing bishop g5, not bishop f4, like we do most of the Jabava lines. Here, it's the immediate pressure on the knight on f6. Here, putting pressure with ideas to perhaps damage the pawn structure. But even here, immediately, we can, after g6, which opponent plays, we can immediately take and damage the pawn structure. Opponent has to take back here, and now their bishop's going to be not so happy biting on granite from their own pawn. So not ideal setup for black, but playable for sure. Here straight away d5, taking away space. Opponent can't play their own pawn to d5, and knight c6 doesn't work either. Taking away some natural development. Bishop probably doesn't even want to come to its g7 square anymore. Probably bishop has to go out the other way, and then yeah, not sure which way black's castling here, but it looks like it's probably going to have to try and manufacture long castling or something in this line. So more to look at in more depth this line. Yeah, have played this before, but didn't actually go for that line in this tournament. Actually played more conservative queen d2. The other thought was to prepare long castling and reinforce the dark squares, and perhaps even trade off the dark squared bishop instead of taking the knight. Not quite sure why I got fixated on that idea. I thought this idea of bishop for bishops play a better trade, but this bishop trade for the knight does come with the ruined pawn structure and not such a happy kingside castle. So yeah, definitely need to review this line in particular. Here the computer has the absolute savage h4 immediately. Ideas are starting to crash through. Now if opponent just continues bishop g7, computer even now saying h5, just keep going, pushing on through. Knight e4, putting pressure on the bishop and forcing the trade. And then knight takes e4, f takes e4, and yeah, the computer says you can even continue. H takes g6, h takes g6, liquidate everything. Now rook takes on h8, bishop takes on h8, and this is crazy. This entire king side has been obliterated. White's lost their rook. At least they have the bishop developed. These pawns look so isolated and weak. This pawn here, but even this pawn can be reinforced from the center, but not ideal, although it does stop the natural development of the knight. Help the knight to secondary homes. So yeah, definitely got to look into this h4 line, and this is again the theme for this tournament in particular. All these h4 opportunities from both the Jabava. We've had 2 games where h4 was possible in the Jabava, and now in the Dutch, definitely possible as well. So need to get on this alpha 0, h4, h5 ideas and implement them even earlier than I'm thinking. But here I played more conservative queen d2. Again, trying to reinforce dark squares and trade off dark square bishop. Opponent continued, bishop g7, natural development. Here I did have h4 in mind now. Seemed like a good way to both reinforce and try and crash through. Long castle also came to mind. I wanted to play either of those moves, but I didn't want to put opponent off castling short. In hindsight, it's not the idea at all. Both these moves are the top 2 engine moves and should be played. They are the best moves. Black's not going to be as quick anyway to start their own attack. They're slightly underdeveloped as well, haven't castled, so really white is still the one ahead of the game here. Even something like long castles, A5 just isn't in time. Now we're going to just strike back H4, and opponent can continue to push. Here we just play A3, and we're in time. Opponent can develop. Castling seems very dangerous here. Now we're just pushing through. Or this is even worse because the king's already castled. So yeah, definitely need to be looking more at these lines and playing more objective. Here I just played the what seemed like more flexible knight F3, natural developing home. Thought the knight could replace the bishop if the bishop leaves. And hopefully just a typical developing move is going to put the opponent off castling kingside. Here opponent plays D6. They have the immediate knight E4 here, which is the top line of the engine. Still forcing trades, but now this is a better version for black as it comes with tempo on the knight. Knight is going to have to either go forward and get kicked again or go backwards. Knight H4 possible, but not many prospects for this knight in the future. Knight E5 after getting kicked. Knight C4 probably just has to find space here. But yes, knight F3, and here opponent plays D6. I thought the immediate idea was to try and reinforce for E5 to fight for the center, as we've got multiple attackers of the E5 square. Opponent also said after the game in post-mortem that the idea was also to get the light squared bishop out, give it a home, and continue developing. Here with long castled, again, we still have had all this time, we've had the ability to take. Didn't seem as appealing because now it seems like opponent can just take back with the bishop. Still top line of the engine though, and as it's been seen, then Harry the H pawn just fires off. But we also have E4 potentially now as well. And after F takes, knight takes on E4, hitting the bishop. The bishop's going to have to spend another tempo going back. We've given opponent the bishop pair, but very active knights. They've got prospects for the future. Got easy development as well, and then potential to castle both ways. Computer even saying here queen F4, stopping castling. So yeah, could have also taken castle long and opponent castled short. And knight E4 was the top engine move. And we still have H4. I mean, the computer's just screaming it over and over again. We'll have bishop takes, H4 is +1. Because the initiative is just coming through very quickly. Even bishop takes on F6 is 0.95 advantage, potentially even +1 advantage for white. Can take it back with either of those. Even E takes, blocking in the bishop. Again, this bishop still met with H4 or E5. Still options. All things need to be studied that I need to study in this opening. The Dutch now made a terrible mistake. Bishop H6, which plays right into black's hands. Seems very thematic that black is looking for this trade doesn't hurt black at all. In other openings where the pawn is not on f5 and it's still on f7. This type of trade is much more powerful. You can see the difference here, being that this knight doesn't have a very secure home. In the Dutch it does though, because it's reinforced by the f5 pawn. So misevaluated here the strength of, after bishop takes and queen takes, totally missed that knight g4 comes with an absolute devastating attack against the queen. Again, if the pawn wasn't all the way up on f5, if it's still on f7, have much better prospects to continue to come back and attack the knight and push the knight back. But here, the knight is well reinforced by the f-pawn. We did find this queen h4 move. Really the only option, queen d2, is the next best option. Queen h4 is -1 for black. d2 is -2.5. So very, very different here. So yeah, straight away this mistake, bishop h6 is already losing for white. Again, we still just have take. H4 still probably is working. Yeah, really should be building up the attack here anyway. Trading off, not really sure why I was so keen to trade off these dark squared bishops. I thought maybe, yeah, leaving the king a bit weak, trading off, leaving this hole in the center here. But yeah, not the way to go at all. So lock this into the memory banks. H4, ready for H5. Opponent can play H5 as well, although this doesn't seem really that strong. And now, now bishop H6 does work. And if bishop takes, queen takes 6. And now, because now G6 is undefended. So yeah, very, very different. Yeah, unfortunately this didn't happen. We played the immediate bishop h6 and ran into this attack. Also got far too overconfident, thinking that I was going to be in time with knight g5, and did not see knight g4 comes much quicker than my knight g5. Then we have to drop back, queen h4. Only move to not be completely blown out of the water here. And opponent, to their credit, found the correct continuation to hold the advantage. This great pawn push to e5. Discovery. The queens are now in tension. The pawns are now in tension. And this knight here is threatening absolutely devastating forks. The queen h5 again, so crucial because it also defends on h2. But now this is removing that defender of f2 pawn. Anything we do, opponent's just going to take our queen. We're not in time with any sort of attack. There's no way to push. We can't take. Opponent's just going to take our queen. We're going to take, and then we're going to get hit with the fork of the rooks. So there's no way to stop that. Spent 20 minutes trying to make knight g5 work, but there's no defense, no way to stop h6. This is absolutely hope chess, and I'm glad I did not play this in the end. There's only one move, but it's straightforward. h6. Anything else is losing. White is winning. Something like knight development here is just mate in 1, but again, this is just hope chess, and very glad I respected my opponent enough to not play this. Played a great opening so far, and I've fallen into tricks and traps, and glad that I showed respect to my younger opponent here. Didn't go for this because there's nothing to be done here. There's no knight hop. Bishop would just snap it off, and the knight would have to just go back here to defend the queen. Otherwise, the queen is in danger. If we were to jump, we would just lose our queen. It's even worse than the knight being hung. It's the queen being hung. Again, we would just have to go back, and the same sequence happens. We just get hit with a devastating fork, and black is devastating here. We didn't play this, fortunately. We respected the opponent and played the only move that's not completely blown out of the water. We have to play queen takes on d8. Rook immediately takes back on d8, and now we're down 20 minutes on the clock as well as being down a full point here. There's no stopping and defending the f2 pawn, so this is getting taken. Now, really felt like the only way was to somehow coordinate the knights here somewhere. So rook e1 is the top computer choice, or rook g1. Played rook d2, which I thought was slightly more flexible. Thought that then maybe in future could double the rooks. Also continues to defend towards the center, which I thought was more natural. But yeah, computer doesn't think this is the ideal. Rook e1, the ideal defense. Now after knight takes on f6, still has to be rook g1. I'm then going to play e4, top line of the engine here. Knight d5. Top line of the engine here. Threatening its own attack on black's rook. Yeah, knight d5. Knight a6 has to be hold. And now knight e3. c6. Black's only just winning here. We have knight f4. Knight f4. Knight e7 check. King g7. Knight takes c8. Top engine line here. Can't see how. It's a bit above my pay grade here. This is only -1 for black, but white is down a full piece here. There's compensation along the G file. We take a rook takes. This knight is offside, but this bishop, a bishop takes on a6. Then black just has the minor piece. Pawn structure is not great, but terrible either. Crazy, I don't see how this is one, but yeah, we're down a rabbit hole. Again, this all wasn't played anyway. Played rook d2. So opponent does take on f2. We have only move rook g1. Save the rook. Opponent now drops the knight back, hitting our knight and our rook. This trade felt forced. I didn't feel like there was much else. Rook d3, but rook d1 just felt like moving around, and then they've got this very strong outposted knight. So yeah, rook knight takes on e4 felt forced. F takes e4 is the obvious response, not going down the minor piece. But now I felt like at least I had counterplay against this pawn, even though there's the rook can come back to the f file. Knight g5 felt natural and didn't feel terrible about this position here. Obviously still down a pawn, but I thought I had good prospects to actually fight back for this pawn. I did miss though that e3 is probably the way to try and hold on to it. I thought d5 felt natural. Even bishop coming to f5 felt like a natural way to defend as well. Not the top either, because white is going to take. Bishop f5, still no good because of g4 kicks the bishop away immediately. It's, yeah, very difficult to actually defend this pawn, so e3 is the way to sort of hold on to it a little longer, but then I thought rook d3 felt natural. H6 would then kick away the knight. Knight e4. Bishop f5, still going after the knight here. Rook takes on e3, defends though. Now e takes. Yes, takes. Knight f6 check though. King's going to come forward to g7. Rook f3. It's not looking great for white. King takes. And now g4. And in the bishop, and we're going to be able to win the bishop back at least. So yeah, at least they can win the bishop back here. So e3 was crucial. We didn't go down this line though. Opponent here, fortunately, started to play almost immediately. They'd been playing well, thinking about their moves all through the opening. But as soon as they had played this immediate knight takes on f2, they started to speed things up, playing basically instantly, even though they were still 20 minutes on the clock. So time management didn't feel ideal for this from this young opponent. The knight e4 was played in like 30 seconds. Taking back, f takes e4 was immediate. Knight g5, and then they immediately played h6. So getting stuck in one move-itis. Trying to threaten the knight, but it's a empty threat because the knight not only is going to move, it's also going to simply capture back. So unfortunate that opponent didn't take some time here to find some of those moves, particularly e3. But even just a developing move would have been better than this h6 push, immediately giving us back the pawn. Here they then played bishop f5, and again this is played within a minute. And here I was calculating first this check, and then if the king was to come, I was then looking at trying to bring the knight around to put pressure onto the c7 pawn, trying to do what opponent did to me and trap the rook in the corner. But then after playing, saw I had even more that could be taken away from this maneuver. So first off, was calculating king g7 or f7 was probably the way to go. G7 to at least get a knot onto the open file. Opponent played king f8 again instantly. Again, I thought it was very natural to put pressure onto the knight. But the move I played after king f8, I would have been played after king g7 as well. Here, this maneuver doesn't work because the opponent can just come back and defend. We had to drop back to d5, knight d5, rook d7. Oh, rook d7 as well. I had also rook c8. Not as good as rook d7, keeps the rook more active. Positions equal here though. So we would have done well to get back, but yeah, even against this, I would have played what I played against what opponent played in the game. King f8, I played this d takes on e5, utilizing that this pawn is pinned. So here, the rooks are in tension. There's no defender of this rook. I did even see this earlier in the game when the queens were in tension, that this potentially was a possibility, although we never had time to implement it. But here the rooks are in tension and opponent cannot capture. Again, unfortunately, my younger underrated opponent playing instantly has played the last 5 or 6 moves instantly. Made the unfortunate blunder of d takes on e5, and go ahead and win this game with rook takes on d8. King's checked. Opponent's down an entire rook here. This knight is pinned. Opponent just resigned in this position. So heartbreaking for the opponent. They played such a great opening, and they probably deserved more from this game. But again, it goes back to time management. Playing classical chess, you've got to take your time. You've got to spend time double checking your moves, calculating, trying to come up with the plans, trying to avoid this one move-itis. And as I played, trying to avoid getting struck with tricks and traps, like the devastating knight g4, something I need to work on as well for the future. I did wonder that king e7 felt very natural. Felt like at least this was a fork against the rook and the knight, so I thought like there was some play, at least to continue on with. I thought I was winning the exchange here. Or I probably had to move my rook somewhere. Rook h8 feels natural, going after the pawn. Rook h8, rook e8. Well, the opponent is just going to go ahead and take on f6. Yeah, although here, even still, the computer says white is +5 advantage, even though material is more equal. We've got the exchange, so up the exchange, the rook for the knight. Here probably would have been even better. Rook h8, take, we could take back 6, so not the optimum. Here it's g4. In this bishop kicking it back, g7, 4, draw. Bishop g2 trading off here, and then going into this endgame with very inactive back rank. Has been resignable for a while, so yeah, appreciate opponent resigning. Very unfortunate. That's sort of the way their tournament ended, and really my tournament ended as well. Yeah, glad for the win. Glad to have found some pretty crucial tactics in the end. Knight maneuver to win back the pawn felt like I was heading in the right direction, and then spotting that this is a pretty devastating pin. Did not expect opponent to go ahead and play this blunder, but happens sometimes. This did see this all the way back quite early on in the game, that if somehow these pawns were to be traded off, the e-pawn was to be traded off, or the d-pawn, that if these pawns disappeared, we would have a very devastating attack if we were to trade, always coming from this type of battery. So definitely saw this before as well, trying to make the e-pawn push work. Castle, and nothing to worry about, but yeah, something like knight c6, d5 comes as well, but none of this really works because there's no way to immediately fight back. But if this is the type of thing I was seeing, although now it doesn't work because the knight is obviously out. That's the end of the MCC Classic. 3.5 out of 9. Great results. My first over the board checkmate, playing against a 1444 rated opponent with the black pieces even. That's a great result for me. Got my FIDE over the board classical rating, 1439, and with that win, bumped up to about 1450 to finish this tournament. So more great results. Plenty to work on. We've got a couple of Jabava London games to add to the database. Plenty of Sicilian to add to the database. We had the Rosalimo, had the Maroxy Bind, had the Open Sicilian, the Accelerated Dragon. So plenty to add there as well. So great experience. Had the one forfeit win, and even a draw as well, coming from that Jabava London where I did play the H4 line against the 1500 as well. So good results. Didn't put up as much resistance against the 1600s. Definitely more to be done to continue to fight, especially higher rated opponents. Good to put this lower rated opponent away with a win, and continue to fight in spirit, because I was definitely feeling devastated after seeing the fork that was coming in on the rooks here. That felt like I messed up this opening completely. So yeah, got to look into the Dutch as well. Add that to the database. Seems to be pretty common over the board. I've played it against it 3 times now. So definitely need to study up against the Dutch. Find at least one pet line to play. Especially against this. I played this against this Fianchetto system before as well. So definitely need to study up against that, put that into the database, and go from there. Kicking off already next week with another tournament back at the MCC, the Melbourne Chess Club, the Bob Brooking tournament. Also a FIDE classical rated tournament. Shorter tournament though, I think it's 7 rounds from my memory. And it's also shorter time control. It's only 75 minutes plus 30-second bonus. So yeah, no rest. We're going straight into the next tournament. Another 7 rounds to finish off the year. Get some more games under my belt and hopefully edge closer towards the 1500 mark. Get some more wins. Would be incredible to tip the 1500 mark this next tournament, but yeah, we're gonna have to fight hard and do well. Spend some time studying these games, and yeah, take it from there. Made it this far. Watched any of my videos from the MCC Classic, in the recaps. Thank you so much. Appreciate your support. Thanks for coming along with the journey, and look forward to bringing you another recap next week, with a win. Thanks so much for supporting Lady Light Chess.